Hi, I'm Lisanne Miller with W. Cushing and Company, and this is Third Thursday with Lisanne in September, and we're back in the dye kitchen. And we're going to dye tone on tone, trans color, or a dip spot, whatever you prefer. And I think you're going to enjoy it. The colors are just perfect for your fall rug. I'd like to thank Rug Hooking Magazine, and this is the latest issue of Rug Hooking Magazine. We at Cushing are so excited for this article. This pattern is Duncan. It is an OSV, Old Sturbridge Village pattern by Pearl McGowan that we have. We print these patterns. Many of my students have hooked these. Great to look at, great to see all the different color waves that you can do one pattern in. So don't miss this issue. And if you've ever wanted to hook Duncan, this is the issue to see how these wonderful ladies have hooked it. So today, in the dye kitchen, we are going to dye, and a lot of this is part of the book, Beautiful Wool in the Dye Kitchen with me. So in here, there's a lot that I'm going over. Great book, good reference to keep in your dye kitchen. And here's today's recipe that we're going to use. We are going to use wine, strawberry, and rose. Okay, wine, strawberry, and rose. And we're going to go over two different wools so that you can see the different look. When you want to learn how colors go, how they work, or what is the depth of the color, this is a great way to figure it out. So we are dyeing over our fleck wool. I love to dye over this wool. It's nice, it's not white, it's a cream with a little bit of fleck, gives it a little bit of motion. And then, to show you something a little different, we're going over our corn silk. It is a yellow herringbone, a pale yellow herringbone, but we'll be going over both of these today with the same formula, okay? So, I'm going to go over the corn silk first, and then you can see how they work. All right, so what is the formula? The formula is 1 teaspoon of wine in 4 cups boiling water, 1 teaspoon of strawberry, half a teaspoon of rose in 2 cups, and then we're going to set it with vinegar. We are going to set this with vinegar. The setting our dyes, the Cushing dyes with vinegar, works very, very well. So, I have already done the one mix, and I'm only going to do the one mix. You don't need to see me mix the dyes twice. My pans are set up. I have 1 teaspoon, and the dye spoon that we use is a half a teaspoon and a whole teaspoon. So you don't have to take your quarter, measure it 4 times, or measure it a half, and then you forget. Then you can't remember, and this allows you, it's a 1 teaspoon and a half a teaspoon, works very, very well. So I have a teaspoon in here, and I'm going to start with the wine. It is in 4 cups of boiling water. Now remember, I am going over a yard of wool. That's why it's in 4 cups. You can take this recipe in half and quarter it once you get the colors that you like. So here we go. Here is my wine, and I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to come over here so you can see. This is the fleck wool, okay? This is my fleck wool, and this is how I set the pan. It is wet. I did put it with lemon joy, very important, lemon joy. It's soaked for about 3 or 4 hours. If I know I'm going to dye, I will put the wool down and soak it overnight. But I want you to see how it looks on this. So here we go. And I'm pouring this very unevenly. I'm not worried about it. I figure I have about 1/3 of a pan. Okay, and I do have about 1/3 of a pan there. And now I'm going to take the next one, which is the strawberry. And I'm going to come over here with the strawberry. And I am bleeding it back and forth. What I'm doing here is I am going and clinking my enamel pan, but I am going back and forth so that we have an even color. If you notice, I have not yet used the spoon or mixed the color. I want this to be uneven. I want this to be mottled. I like an uneven. We don't want a solid dye. And now here's the rose. And the rose is going to go back and forth, and all the other colors have kind of bled down. Gravity has bled them down. So now I take my spoon. My spoon is very important here. So with the spoon, people like to do it this way, and they like to puddle it. Make sure you have a good stainless steel spoon. This is invaluable in your die kitchen. I don't puddle this way because you miss the folds of the wool. So here we go. Now when you cut your wool to fit into a pan, you always cut an extra inch. Like with this, it is 1 yard and 1 inch. Because when you cook the wool, or put it on medium heat and let it heat for 25 minutes, you will shrink it a little bit. So you need to make sure you have that margin. So we do 1 yard and 1 inch. And you see, by doing the points, if you watch this, by doing the points, and I am going over a texture that is a color, so I have to make sure so we don't have dead areas. We don't want dead spots. And I have to make sure of that. And there we are. If I just puddle this like this, it doesn't get into the crevices. So use that tip of your spoon. Use it so that you get in there. Now, a lot of people, when they do larger quantities or a bigger quantity, their ends will fold, okay? You don't want your ends to fold under, because then the dye doesn't get on it properly and it does create another dead spot, okay? So now, here we go. And now I'm coming in here. I'm in my second color. I have blended the first 2 colors. I have blended them together just like that. And I'm blending them together so it's seamless. It's seamless going down. Now I'm into the next color. So this is the strawberry. This is the wine. Now I'm into the strawberry. And it's looking very nice on this corn silk herringbone. And here we go. Now, you've got to take your time. I know when you get down to the end of the pan, and I know this takes a lot of time, that you have to get in and you have to move it around. So this is where you push it up. If you notice what I'm doing, I'm pushing my ends up. And this happens to be a little folded under, so I'm pushing it out and up, so that the dye is getting in there. If you want the base wool to show, that's great. In this case, I do not. I want it covered, and I'm using the tip of my spoon, and you see down here, it's folded up again. I'm unfolding it, you take your time. If you put your time in while you're setting this, you get a better result. This is not a quick process. You can't, I always say to people, don't cheat the process when you're dyeing. And you can't cheat the process or you will not get the right results. So I have my pan. Now I've got to do one more check, and I do this every time. I come down the sides here, make sure, I got to fold. See, I got one folded. And I got to make sure it's unfolded. And that's what I'm doing. And make sure you wear older t-shirt or clothes, because you do get wet. I'm all wet in the front from leaning over, but that's okay. And now I go down the other side. I'm trying to make sure that and you can wear rubber gloves, that's no problem. So there we are, okay? There we are. So there's that, it's ready to go. Now that it's ready to go, I'm going to take my vinegar. I have a 1/2 cup of water. This is a 1/2 cup of water, I'm sorry. I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of vinegar. Okay, so it's the white vinegar. I'm adding it till it's a full cup, like that. And I'm going to go around and around and around. And then that's enough to set that 1 yard. Make sure it's white vinegar, and it's for 1 yard. I use a 1/2 cup of vinegar and a 1/2 cup of water mixed. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about this pan that I'm not going to dye this today, it's the same process. But people want to know how to set your pan. You can set, how you set your pan and your wool is your signature. So for me, when I set the pan, I don't start up here and work down. I don't like that. I like to start right down here, and I'm going to set this pan for you so you can see it. I know a lot of you have asked. And I'm setting it. I do not do little cabbages. I do kind of half swirls. What a cabbage would be this. Some people set just like that, little cabbages. I do not. So, first thing, what am I doing? I'm trying to make sure I'm not folded under. And now I set. I set from the bottom of my pan and I set up. Maybe I don't know why, I've always done it this way. It's what's more comfortable for me. There is no right or wrong. You can start from the top and work down as well. And this also takes time. Again, don't rush the process. Don't let the folds appear. You've got to make sure that you've got motion in here, that you want the motion, okay? And then you can move it up. And yes, you can move it down, but I think a lot of times when you get to the bottom of a dye pan, it does get a little cheated, you get a little rushed, so maybe that's why I start at the bottom, make sure it's set properly. And now I'm up here, I'm all the way up here, and I'm setting it. And then if I have, and these will bubble up when you cook them, you know, and that's okay too. And now my pan is set. I'm just pushing it down a little bit, so when I go to pour, I get in all the little nooks and crannies. Think of this as an English muffin. I always say think of it as an English muffin, and you're putting hot butter and warm peanut butter after it's toasted, and it's got to get in all the little nooks and crannies. So that is how I would set my pan. That is how I set both pans, so that everything can go right in. Now I'm going to come back over here for a minute, and I want to talk to you about measuring your dye. So when you measure your dye, and you go to measure your dye, I'm going to take the rose. It's a little easier when you have the bigger spoon. So I need a half of rose, which I'm going to do. And you don't have to put this in. You put this here like this, put it over. If you go a drop or two over, it's not going to matter. In a dip spot like this, and you shake it till it's even, and then you pour it in, and then you would immediately clean your dye spoon. Now, big notice for everybody, if you want, and we will put your dyes into jars, only if you order 8 ounces or more of a certain color, and we will jar it for you. But it has to be, if you wanted, and that's 24 packs. 8 ounces is 24 packs. So if you wanted 24 packs of rose, you would get it in a jar. But you have to call the order in and ask for it in jars. But that is how you measure. You measure it with the bigger spoons. If you only have the packages, that is how you pour it in. Okay? So now we're going to go back, and I'm going to put on the heat. And I'm putting it on a medium heat, okay? I've lit it, and I'm on a medium heat. You don't want to get it too hot, and I'll turn it back off because I don't have my other pans set. We usually set 2 pans or 3 pans at a time, because this will also heat and there's no water in it. Now, back to that. So I've put this on a medium heat, and then I will set my timer. I'm going to set my timer for 25 minutes. Don't set it for 15. Let it cook all the way through. Let the water be clear. Okay? So that would be for 25 minutes. Now, and we'll shut that off so we don't hear the ticking the entire time. I'm going to shut that back off for a little bit. Now, a lot of people have asked if I put water in the pan after I set it like this. It depends upon the process that I'm using. So in this process, as you can tell, there's a lot of water, there's a lot of dye. I don't need to add water. If I needed to add water, I usually add it ahead of time. I don't add it after. I like to add it ahead of time so that the water would show up and then put the dye on. It moves the dye around, but if you have enough dye and you have enough in here, you don't have to worry because then it will move around, as you can tell, by itself. So yes, you can add water to the pan, but know that you're going to sacrifice modeling by putting that in. So yes, you can, but you won't get the highs and the lows in as much modeling. It'll be more of a fluid look, almost a solid look. So that we don't have to sit for 25 minutes and be in the dye kitchen while I make the second batch, we've already dyed these for you. Now, the first one is done on our fleck wool. And here's our fleck wool, here's the start, and here is the finish. And the finish is very important because, as you can see, okay, let me get this up. As you can see, there we are. We've got it from the dark into the medium, into the medium, and into the light. So here's our wool, just like that. Now, if you do not mix your dye, you will get what we call pixelation. And I want to show you what a pixelation looks like so that you can avoid it. Here is a pixelation, right here. And this was done deliberately. I added dry dye after. This is more to go over what not to do. Do not unless you want this look. What happens is if you do not take the time, you do not stir, and when you leave in your measuring cup the dye, it will pixelate. It has not, either your water wasn't hot enough or you didn't stir it enough. So this is called a pixelation. It doesn't hurt when you hook, you barely see it, but you really want to avoid pixelation. You really want to avoid it. People have asked about this, and this is pixelation right there. So you do want to avoid it when you get this, because a lot of you have sent me pictures like this. This is when you either didn't have the water hot enough, use your electric tea kettle, or you did not mix the dyes enough. Take the time. Remember, don't cheat the process. And now we have the most interesting one on the corn silk. Here's our corn silk. And here we have a beautiful piece as well. So we are going to go from dark to medium to light. So here we are. There we are. Beautiful wool. You can see the herringbone. It looks beautiful together. You can see a little bit of the yellow coming through. Also on here, they go together. So now you have in two pans with the same dye formula, you have two pieces of wool that will go together for a leaf, a rose, landscape, beautiful sky, whatever you'd like. So there you are. I hope that you've picked up some tips and techniques with this dye lesson. And again, we will go over the dye formula one more time, okay? So you're going over 1 yard, and it was either the fleck wool or the corn silk, 1 teaspoon of wine in 4 cups boiling water. And remember, use that electric tea kettle. Don't get the pixelation. 1 teaspoon of strawberry in 4 cups boiling water. And then a 1/2 teaspoon of rose in 2 cups. Yes, this is more concentrated. Yes, it is a little bit darker color. So suppose you don't want to dye a yard. You can half these, quarter these, and you will get a nice, beautiful formula, depending on the size of the wool you're going over. You're going to set it with a 1/2 cup of water mixed with a 1/2 cup of vinegar. Okay, and you're going to pour the dye in thirds, and that's how I did it. I eyed it in thirds. No, I did not measure it. Mix them back and forth so that they blended together with the point of my spoon, and then pour my vinegar and we'll cook it for 25 minutes. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope you try it. Send us pictures, send me pictures. I'd love to see what you do. And we look forward to October. In October, we're going to go over a particular tool of the trade, and we are going to go over how different size cuts of texture can be used to create many different things, including a freeform leaf. So be well, stay well, and we'll see you in October. Thank you.